Mashane Politically Incorrect, guys, something very interesting. Let's talk about these coalitions. So I remember there was a time where coalitions were speaking of in good light. So what does that mean? It means when we spoke about coalitions, we thought they are going to guard each other, police each other, and have competition for the good of the community. The GNU. I asked Action SA National Chairperson Michael Beaumont. I asked him specifically because I wanted him to I wanted to understand what do they feel, because they are outside the GNU nationally. They were troubled by DA, by the way. So here's the thing: they could not make how do I put it? They could not make allegations that other political parties are making outside Tshwane. What do I mean by that? So in Tshwane, they could not allege that DA is racist. DA, remember when DA sworn at people? They swore at people. They said they were drunkards and thugs. Even when Action SA felt the same, they could not do it because they were in collusion with the DA. So I asked him specifically what is his feeling about what is happening with DA in Parliament, because now EFF is able to take John Steenhuisen to task about his illegal, well, I'm going to call it illegal, appointments where people are not entitled to those jobs, but he appoints them even though they do not qualify. So EFF is positively and confidently taking DA on that, and they're taking them to the cleaners. EFF is not a big party in Parliament when compared to ANC. ANC sees that they don't do anything. Reason, PhalaPhala. Should they do anything against the ANC, because they are now coalition partners, GNU partners, then the DA will do the same. Why do we say so? We are seeing how DA is treating Panyaza Sufi. We know how the AfriForum is treating Panyaza Sufi because they believe him. They've declared him persona non grata in Gauteng province because they believe he's the one who denied them opportunities in Tshwane. So extortion is a trending word in South Africa. Are political parties engaging in political extortion? Are they extorting Panyaza Sufi for him to be lenient on negotiations? Are they bullying him? And is it happening with other political parties where if you do not toe the line, they're going to release dogs on you? These media people who are playing this game with them, is it fair game? Is it what we want? Is it what we thought we should get? Please tell me about it. But the case in point, I want us to talk as South Africa. Judge Lopez speaks about that arrangement as you can actually charge the president with a lot of things, but amongst others, you can talk about tax evasion because there was monies that were not declared, and they want to pursue him on that. Well, who is that? It's MK. Why are they doing it? Because they're not GNU partners. You understand where I'm going. But I want you to listen to another, well, someone who was excluded. I don't know if I should say excluded, but someone who's not in the GNU, but is in the caucus, the Progressive Caucus in Parliament, ATM. Let's see how he pursues this matter of PhalaPhala, because PhalaPhala will remain there, like Nkandla remained. They are going to milk everything about Nkandla, and they are going to threaten each other. It's a tool of extortion. Mashane Politically Incorrect. Let's listen to ATM as they pursue this matter forward. Thank you.
Now the African Transformation Movement leader, Mr. Vuyolwethu Zungula, joins us in studio for a reaction. Very good evening to you, sir. Thank you for joining us at very short notice. We certainly appreciate it. Your immediate reaction hearing this news that the NPA has simply declined to prosecute this case. They say there's no evidence, there's no prospect that this case can actually go ahead and succeed.
Look, this conduct by the NPA basically erodes the trust that citizens should have on such institutions, because the manner in which they are handling such cases of politically politically exposed people like the president versus ordinary citizens, gives an impression that they treat certain people differently and they treat other people differently for the same facts before the law. I want to make an example. There is a Miss Sipoka Zindungane who was arrested. She was a former DDG of Fisheries. She was arrested in line with, for violating Section 34 of PRECA, which places a responsibility on certain people to report any fraud or theft or corruption that is above 100,000. Now, if you look at the facts when it comes to PhalaPhala, Mr. Ramaphosa owns a close corporation. He's a sole member of a close corporation. He's aware of a theft that is above 100,000, which is what is required by that particular section of the law. But he does not go and report that particular crime, meaning he's violated Section 34 of PRECA. So the issue here that we find ourselves in as a country is that why should we allow the institutions to treat presidents or people like Mr. Ramaphosa differently and treat other people again differently, because it means there can never be justice in our country if there's a law for Mr. Ramaphosa and another law for other people.
Let's go back to the merits of what the public protector found in her report, that the president, there was no conflict of interest, there was no abuse of power, just to give context to the decision that has been made today by the NPA, and that the president was in fact not involved in the day-to-day activities of this farm, so he cannot be then prosecuted, with the charges that had been brought against him.
Now, if we're to focus on what the NPA was supposed to prosecute the president on, the first one is that the regulations are very clear. How much cash can you hold in your private property or by you? The limit is 25,000. It is not an amount that is ambiguous. Now, what are the facts? Mr. Ramaphosa, when responding to the independent panel in Parliament, he stated that the amount that he had in his own property was way above 25,000. But the NPA, on a clear issue, is refusing to prosecute, whereas there's a clear violation of the law. The second issue is that the foreign currency that was there, it was not declared. The Reserve Bank was not aware that there was foreign currency that was in PhalaPhala. That is why they wrote a letter to him asking him, please supply the Reserve Bank with information as to what is the source of that foreign currency. And there is a 30-day limit whereby in 30 days, if you are a holder of foreign currency, you need to declare to the Reserve Bank. He did not do so. That is another clear violation. And it is not something that Mr. Ramaphosa himself has denied. He has stated so in his answers. The third issue, it is abuse of power. In the abuse of power, in the sense that there was a theft and there was an action or investigation that was done by the head of his protection unit. And the guy, Mr. Rode, when he was doing the entire investigation, it was because of an instruction that was coming from the president of the country. Was the case open? No. Meaning there was abuse of state resources because there was a covert investigation that was done without following the due processes when it comes to how do you investigate theft. So based on those three things, it baffles us as to why the NPA would refuse to prosecute the president. And the last issue here, on the question of NPA actually undermining South Africans, because this is a very serious issue, a very important issue that speaks to alleged criminal activity by the president. Now, they delegate that responsibility to a provincial head from Limpopo, who issues a one-pager statement saying that they are not going to they are not going to prosecute. It is not even communicated by the head of the institution, which is the head of the NPA, in a form of, at very least, a press briefing whereby They speak to South African citizens to say, here were the matters or the issues that was before us, here's the evidence, and based on what was before us, we've taken this decision. And journalists ask questions to hold them accountable. In this case, the NPA has never been held accountable or is not being held accountable
so at this
for that.
point, we don't have the privilege of knowing what kind of evidence that the NPA was dealing with in accordance to this case, because as far as they're concerned, the evidence that has been brought forward to them is simply not enough. And that is their argument, to say, if we have enough evidence for us to prosecute, would go ahead with this case. But they say they simply do not have it. The burden is who? On the investigators, the South African Police Service, to ensure that they have enough evidence for this case to hold water. But once again, you put this blame on the NPA squarely.
It is the NPA that has taken this decision. The focus here on my side is to say the NPA should have at least respected South African citizens by communicating this issue publicly to South African citizens, at least verbally in a form of a press briefing, whereby journalists like yourself, you could have asked questions to them to say, but here are the facts. You could have asked them a simple question. Section 34 of PRECA says, if a person fails to report a crime or a theft that is above 100,000, that person needs to be arrested. Here's a case in point of Ms. Phokas Ndungane, who was arrested for the very similar issue. And the president here is no way denying that he is a responsible person because he's a sole member of a close corporation. He's aware of a theft that is above 100,000, but he did not report that. So based on that, you would have engaged the NPA and also asked the NPA, how many people have been arrested in our country for holding more than 25,000 in cash? And why is the president not arrested? Because he is the one who went to parliament. He also spoke in the ANC gathering saying that the amount that was there was not the amount that was stated, but it was above 25,000. The law is clear. So again, it baffles us as to why the NPA is saying there's no evidence. There's evidence in terms of what the president communicated to the independent panel in terms of the amount of cash that was there, how long the cash was there, and what, the instruction that he gave to Mr. Wally Rode. So the question of abuse of state resources is very clear. It does not need further evidence. The question of violating the amount, the excessive amount that could have, which is 25,000, is also there. And also the last one, the issue of holding foreign currency, which is not declared, which was not known. It is also clear. So it is a case here of an institution that is choosing to protect a certain president and, undermining South Africans by treating president differently from what they would have treated if it was me and you.
At the dawn of the so-called new era, we promised that institutions, such as the NPA in particular, that had been a subject of state capture, would be renewed, trust within, South Africans would be renewed and resuscitated. Your opinion is that that hasn't been successful. So where to now for the ATM, given the results, the reaction that we've heard from the NPA?
No, this is opposite to, renewal or whatever terms they use to mislead South Africans. Because another issue here that maybe needs to be understood by the people. You've got an independent panel report which was appointed by Parliament to investigate this matter. They came with recommendations or a conclusion to say there is prima facie evidence of wrongdoing. They are independent. It is a retired judge, retired Chief Justice. Now, if you look at the Public Protector, the NPA, the Reserve Bank, all of these institutions that have protected the president of the country are institutions who depend on the very same president to be appointed or to be suspended or to be dismissed. So their independence there's no independence. Their independence, there's no independence because whatever the work they're doing, at the end of the day, the provincial head of the NPA in Limpopo, if they want to go to national, they depend again on the very same president. So the word too from now, when it comes to us as the ATM, on the 26th of November, this issue will be ventilated again in court because in 2022, the National Assembly violated Section 42(3) of the Constitution by refusing to investigate the president on the question of PhalaPhala. And we can sit here now. This issue was made public in 2022. You can tell us, it is now 2024, has the president accounted for the issue? There's no time where even he spoke to the South African citizens to say, as your leader, as your number one citizen, I've been accused of 1, 2, 3, and I'm taking I'm taking responsibility by communicating to you as a citizen to say, this is what transpired and this is how, as a citizen, you need to trust me. He's never done that. Instead, he's relied on these institutions to protect him, and he's used his party's majority in parliament to protect him from being held accountable in parliament, whereas there is an independent panel report that is saying there is a case to answer.
So what then do you make of the government of national unity? I know we know your position as a party with regards to that. You say the president is being protected, he's not being held to account when it comes to issues that have stark evidence, as you allege. You and the economic freedom fighters, as you've said again, are seeking to revive the impeachment inquiry. What do you think your prospects are going forward? If you think that the NPA is not reliable, Parliament is not reliable, especially with the government of national unity?
The citizens are going to see the type of lying parties or parties that are very hypocritical. Because, for example, we've got a case of the DA. When the DA, I think it was asked to Ms. Helen Zille, she said there is no way in which they are going to support the impeachment of the president. The very same DA 2 years in 2022, when they're voting on this issue, they voted for an inquiry. They even wrote to the FBI saying that the FBI must investigate those dollars. They even wanted an ad hoc committee on Phala Phala to be established. But when this is going to be brought up to Parliament, South Africans are going to see which parties are actually pro-constitutionalism and accountability and pro-principle, and which parties are actually lying, because the DA and the other parties have been screaming to say, they are pro-constitutionalism, they are pro-accountability, but when they are supposed to vote to hold the president accountable, their own leader, which is Helen Zille, is saying that they are not going to do that. So South Africans need to take note which parties actually want to move South Africa forward, which parties are actually lying to citizens, making it as if they are pro-accountability, but in practice, they are opposed to accountability.
I suppose we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Mr. Zungula. I suppose we'll have this conversation again, at least with Newsroom Africa in November, when you go back to the Constitutional Court to see how that bid turns out. We thank you so much for your time.